Hello everybody, welcome into the HobbyBarr. This is Jason. Welcome on in. Today, we'll be working on getting these Vanguard-Raptors bases done up. This way, they can be good to go. We can move on to the next project. To start off, we'll be using some Citadel Dryad Bark. It's a base paint, nice dark brown. Because then over it, I'm gonna put some Agrellan Badlands. It's a texture paint, a crackle paint, and that'll give us sort of the cracked up desert look. But because it cracks, you need something under it, otherwise you see the base coat down there, and I didn't want to see that. So we're gonna cover it in a dark brown, so when it cracks there'll be dark brown in there already. Make it real easy. Then wait for the Agrellan Earth to dry, and we'll move on to dry brushing. But first, go ahead and brush this onto their bases. What I think we'll do for this one is try just skipping through, showing the individual steps a little bit faster. It's more tutorial-ish, and not something I really want to do right now, but we'll see how that goes. This way y'all can get on with your day doing other stuff a little bit faster. Maybe that's something that will be better off. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, go ahead and get this base coat done. Catch up with y'all after the couple of thin coats on each person's base to put on the texture paint. Alrighty, we are going to now start adding the Agrellan Earth texture paint by Citadel. Kind of am trying to go through my backlog of Citadel stuff, just so I can move on to some other paints that I have. Though I really do like their texture paints. That's what I tend to use for basing. Again, I tend to like simple basing, instead of very intricate, built up, and super intricate basing. Unless that's what the model comes on. But yeah, we'll go ahead and just put this on, spread it out, and then the process comes up of letting it dry. Nice thing, it's super easy to apply this stuff for the crackle paint. I could just as easily also get some crackle medium to add to paints and do my own colors up of crackling effects, but this is just simpler. Sure, it ain't cheap. It's a little simpler, but I can use it up since I already got it. Anyway, we'll go ahead and put on just one. I tend to leave it relatively thin because I don't want it to be big, super big cracks all over the place, because the way the paint works is if you put it on thin, it tends to leave very thin cracks, if it cracks at all. Like if you make it too thin, it will just leave it this brown and not really do much. But if you if you leave it too thick, like try to leave a gloop of it somewhere, it'll just start slowly spreading out. So you can't really have like one area super strong of like a built-up layer of the stuff to make really strong cracks, because it'll slowly start spreading out as it dries, and you'll end up with, sure, you'll have stronger cracks in that area, it'll spread out a little more. At least that's what I noticed with Agrellan Earth. I don't know if some of the others are better for that. I think Mordant Earth also did the same thing when I was using that. So you can't really leave a big blob somewhere and thin it out around it too easily. At least that's my experience with it. But I'll go around poking and moving blobs of the stuff around to get it to varying thicknesses around the base. I kind of don't really put in waves per se. I just sort of leave it kind of randomly. I guess the easiest way to describe it is stippled around the base, where I've had to push and move it around, let it do its thing, which its thing takes some time. The later two that, not this captain guy, the other two that I'm putting down the basing on, they take a good 4 or 5 hours, I think, for the stuff to crack up. But that's in a relatively dry climate where I'm working in, and yeah, it just takes time. So keep that in mind when you're working with this stuff. It takes a while to be cracked up and ready to go. I generally don't start painting it super early, like dry brushing over it super early, because you'll notice it sort of be soft still, and if you start dry brushing too soon, you'll just start tearing off some of the chunks, I've noticed. It's not so much a problem if you're doing, say, like a lava base or something, but in a desert base, you kind of don't want to tear off any of the chunks or remove any of it. You have to just let it dry and do its thing so that you can then dry brush over it. I guess if you're not dry brushing, then that's not that big of a deal. But for basing, I tend to go with dry brushing. Makes it way quicker. Anyway, go ahead and get these other two done up, and then we'll move on to dry brushing. Alright, now we're gonna dry brush on some Terminatus Stone onto the base after it's dried. It took about 5 to 6 hours to dry, and I didn't want to just leave the camera recording and do a time-lapse sort of thing. As interesting as it is to watch it crackle, that's far too much footage and time to leave the camera running, so sadly I will not make y'all sit here and watch texture paint dry, if that's what you were hoping for in the stream alternative. But, we'll go ahead and dry brush these 3 gents bases with just some Citadel dry paint called Terminatus Stone, and get them that slightly dusty look to the dried out earth that they're standing on. This way they match up with the rest of my Daughters of Khaine. Again, these guys are going to be range support for my Daughters of Khaine because, frankly, the Blood Stalkers. Oh no. Whew, it's been that long since I played. They're either Blood Sisters or Blood Stalkers. I think Stalkers are the ranged option, and now I'm gonna look silly. And anyway, the ranged option for Daughters of Khaine in the form of their Snake Ladies, frankly, aren't that great, and neither are the spear-throwing Kinnerai that fly around, being annoying and not really able to kill anything, in my opinion. And yeah, they're a little lacking in their range game, needless to say. So I figure a couple squads of these boys in stone and gold with their big old DACA guns, that'll help out in that front. Anyway, we'll go ahead and dry brush these up, and I'll catch up with y'all when we get to putting on some grass tufts, because they need a few at least. Help break up the monotony of just being a flat, broken up little bit of dry brushed, crackly dirt. Let's catch up with y'all a little bit. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and add some tufts of grass onto the dried out Agrellan Earth on these guys. Well, I got out the tweezers because I'm kind of sick of trying to fiddle with grabbing the tufts off of the paper with my big old chubby fingers, so decided to bust out the tweezers on this one. And for this first application of getting it down, I kind of got a little carried away with the amount of PVA glue I put on there. So I had to grab this paper towel and sort of prod around at the edges. It's been a while since I've added some tufts on the bases. There is a bit of tackiness on the bottom of them, so you don't necessarily have to add any glue, but definitely PVA glue helps keep it attached for as long as you need it. But I'll go ahead and add a couple of these to each base, just so that it's not just dried out dirt on everyone's base. And I don't want it to be too many of them, because then it would not really be dried out. No, it shouldn't be dried out if there's too many tufts, in my opinion. So we find some of the flatter areas where it didn't get to crackle as much, and just add some tufts in there just to kind of cover it up as well. Break up the way that the base appears, and continue that way. Again, just super simple basing. Don't really like it when it's too intricate, but that's my personal preference. Could add some rocks to it as well, but I don't really have any rocks on any of their other bases unless their model comes with some rocks, so I figure these guys can just be standing out in front in the open, which is what I plan on them doing, so that they have the best shot of firing before they reach the ladies that like to stab them. Well, before enemies reach the ladies that like to stab in face, so kind of going for the classic, well, while they're at range, have the range guys up front, and then, well, I'll let them go ahead and crash into the range guys all day, because then they're not crashing into my squishy ladies. So these guys can take that frontal charge from enemies, or I can maneuver them backwards and cycle the unit, or cycle them to behind a frontline unit to take the brunt so that they can keep shooting, but I'll figure that out through more playing. It's been quite a while since I've last played these Daughters of Khaine, so looking forward to getting these guys done up so I can get them back on the table. But anyway, we'll go ahead and continue adding the tufts, and then we'll go on to rimming the base with some Abaddon Black, because I like the classic black rim for bases, so we'll go ahead and do that for them. Anyway, catch up with y'all when we are rimming bases on these guys. Alrighty, now we're going to go ahead and add some Abaddon Black to the rim of the base. This way they fit in with everybody else in the army. Also, I just like the appearance of black rim bases, so go ahead and get this set up, and we'll go ahead and rim the bases. What I usually do for rimming is I'll go around with one color in one direction of brush strokes, and then I'll sort of try to vary it to a different direction and go the other direction around the mini. And this way it can kind of fill in the brush stroke areas of where I left on the last pass, and yeah, I can build up that much stronger color that it needs to build up. So it takes me usually 2 to 3 coats, and then it's good to go. I don't really varnish these guys, even though they're play pieces. I probably should. But I don't really have a good solid pure matte varnish. I have the Storm Shield, which is more of a satin varnish, and I have Art Coat. I guess technically I could throw Lamian Medium over all of it as a sort of sealant, but I need to see if I can pick up a matte varnish, a good actually matte varnish that's paint on, because I like brush on stuff. Anyway, go ahead. Again, go ahead and... Enough rambling on. We'll go ahead and finish rimming these bases and catch up with y'all when we reach the last call. Alright, last call everyone. So for the last call today, just figured to let you know we're going to move on to the Guild Ball Rat Catchers members that I've left up to paint up. There's only 4 of them, so we'll get them knocked out pretty easily probably. Let's see. After them, we'll do the base on the Super Dungeon Explorer mini, and then we'll figure out where to go from there. Not sure which category to put these videos under, because it's kind of meant to be more of a blog style, but just to kind of show progress as I continue, but I don't know. Doesn't seem like it's happening. Anyway, trying to figure it out. If there's any suggestions, go ahead and throw them in the comments, anything y'all want to discuss. Otherwise, go ahead and close up the shop for the day. Have a good one, y'all. Take care.